And traditionally, I mean, Minnesota is not really a team that's going to drop money like that. Right now they're paying Cat, they're paying Ant, they're paying Rudy. That's expensive, and they're paying another guy. They're paying a couple other players too. So it maybe get too expensive for them too. So I can see what they're doing, but
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams. And on today's Wind Up Wednesday edition in segment one, NBA starts in about a month, and we're going to talk about stories of the week and if they really make a difference or not. In segment two, the second round of the WNBA is here, and is basketball going to be enough of a focus because we've got the four best teams in the league? And in segment three, a lot of NIL talk this week. We're going to put our own spin on it. But first, does this make a difference? They told me this was a blockbuster deal. So, fans, the New York Knickerbockers and the Minnesota Timberwolves, along with the Charlotte Hornets, are finalizing, and it will be finalized by the time this comes out, a blockbuster trade involving all stars Julius Randle, the best shooting big man in the history of the league, Carl Anthony Towns, and Dante DiVincenzo is a part of it. So Randall and DiVincenzo are already going to Minnesota, so that breaks up the Nova Knicks, and Towns is going to New York City. Good luck with that, media. Minnesota will also receive a 2025 top 13 protected first round pick from the New York Knicks via the Detroit Pistons. And the Charlotte Hornets are the third team in the trade, and they're expected to receive some draft compensation to make the money work out. Robert, you are our levity here. Does this even make a difference?
No, I don't think so. I think it makes a bigger difference for Minnesota than it does for the Knicks. I don't think Carl Anthony Towns changes the Knicks. I am not a Julius Randle fan. I have never been a Julius Randle fan. You add that guy to your team, I think that creates issues for you. And they had real good chemistry getting to the Western Conference Finals. And I know they're trying to change it up so that they can repeat, if not go to the next step, and that ain't it.
Will Cotton, you too on the show have expressed your displeasure at times with the fit of Julius Randle in New York. See how I tried to do that, Robert? Does this trade make a difference, in your opinion, Cotton Man?
no, I don't. They just lost a really good player, and Dante Vincenzo. I think they lost a really good player. I think they got a slightly better Julius Randle because they got to do the same thing, in my opinion. They like to shoot threes. They like to bring the ball up. They have unforced turnovers all the time. I mean, shoot, that's they're the same guy, And again, it's not easy to play in New York. It's not easy to play in New York, but it's a shot in the arm. It gets people really excited in New York. It's always good for the league if the traditional teams are doing better. But I have to agree with Robert. I think it's more so for Minnesota. I think quietly, I think they're going a different direction. I mean, if you're trading Cat, I think if they have a rough, November and December, they could trade Rudy, maybe get some cap space. They can rebuild around Ant, for what he needs rather than what they thought he needed. So, and traditionally, I mean, Minnesota is not really a team that's going to drop money like that. Right now they're paying Cat, they're paying Ant, they're paying Rudy. That's expensive, and they're paying another guy. They're paying a couple other players too. So it maybe get too expensive for them too. So I can see what they're doing, but we'll see, man. We'll see. It's going to be exciting. There's going to be a lot of Knicks on TV all season long, man. So we're gonna have a lot of full Cat and Jalen Brunson and all that good stuff,
All
man.
right. Okay, begrudgingly, we'll talk about the Lakers. The Lakers are already considering how they're going to handle whenever they create the game where LeBron James and Bronny James take the court. As you know, the Lakers selected Bronny with the 55th pick in the overwhelmingly weak 2024 NBA draft. They will be the first father-son duo to play on the same team. Fine. wonderful. Enjoy yourself. And then we'll move on to them playing in the play-in teams and whatever. Will, is this a big deal to you? Does this make a difference?
Nah, the NBA is just paying homage to LeBron while he's in the game. They're just saying, "Hey, thanks for all the money you made us. We appreciate it. This is the least we can do.
This is the least we can stop
This
it.
is the least. This is the least we can appease."
Robert, is this Teacher Appreciation Week? What do you think about the Lakers?
That's really an apt comparison. It's like, okay, we'll run Bronny out there 8 to 10 minutes a game in November and December, and then after Christmas, once the intensity turns up a little bit, there will be a whole lot of DNP coaches' decisions after Bronny's name.
All right. So we talked about the Lakers. There you go. All right. New Orleans. I'm excited because if you're a longtime listener to the show, you know what a mark I am. That's wrestling terminology for fan. I am Zion Williams. And Zion said, fellas, that he's here to put the league on notice. Whenever Zion plays, New Orleans is in the top 6. Go check the data. However, Zion has not been a member of the 65 game club fairly often. So, Robert, does this make a difference? Does a healthy Zion make New Orleans a player in the West?
A healthy Zion makes New Orleans a player in the West. I don't believe this for a second that. Yeah, guys like this. I mean, he is extremely talented. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to keep your weight under control. It's especially hard when you live in a place like New Orleans. I mean, there is a lot going on there, and it's hard to keep your weight down. And don't tell me, show me. Let's get to like February with Zion playing 55 of 60 games. I mean, you want to sit him on the back end of a back-to-back or, three games in 4 nights, that kind of thing. Okay, cool. But let's get to February where he's played like 55 out of 60 games and then talk to me.
Okay. Will Cotton, I love Zion, and the franchise doesn't. No hate. But again, is this a big deal? Zion's ready to play, baby.
It's all like both of you said. I mean, it's great when he's on the floor. It's immensely important for New Orleans because they got rid of Anthony Davis and they solely were like, here are the keys to the kingdom. And when he plays, he's really the real deal. He's really the real deal. I personally think he may be doing the wrong workouts. I mean, I think he's out there doing bench press. I think he's doing curls. I think he should be doing a lot of pliability. I think he should do a lot of yoga. I think he should be doing stuff like that where he's staying strong, but also flexible. But they get paid millions of dollars to figure that out. I shouldn't be sitting here in a podcast, figuring that out for them. They can be like, yeah, but I think that's probably what they need to do, work with his flexibility. Because when he gets hurt, it's always non-contact, landing, falling, things like that. That's stuff where it's like, dude, like I do it now as I'm getting older. I start doing more stretching, more yoga, things like that. And I've seen the difference, especially when you sleep. Oh man, so yeah, I think as long as he's healthy, they're going to be in the mix. And I think if they change his workouts, I think it'll be more effective moving forward long term as well. So yeah, I'm on the train, coach. Let's go. Let's get them
going. Clippers. Kawhi Leonard has had a procedure on his right knee during the offseason. It is the knee that cost him the playoffs as well as his spot on the U.S. Olympic team. He will be limited to strengthening his knee at the start of training camp, according to media reports. Robert, is this a big deal because the Clippers blew up their team? And they really have underperformed. What say you, sir?
I am both shocked and amazed, but mostly Kawhi Leonard is injured and is going to miss the start of the season. Another guy who is brilliantly talented, but always seems to be hurt. He's another one of those guys for me. I don't know how much he likes basketball.
Mm. Yes, we do have that conversation. Will, I chose Kawhi Leonard over Ben Simmons in honor of you, sir. Any thoughts on Kawhi being limited as training camp begins?
Keep the charade going. If they keep paying you, keep the charade going, man. I mean, they gave him $150 million. So it's like, hey, man, if I'll stay in the training table, I'll stay working on my thing. I'll keep I got, two finals MVPs, two chips, so I'm living off that. I keep my, he's just collecting money. And to be honest with you, I don't think the Clippers really have a plan outside of Kawhi. I think they thought this was going to be it. And I think it's probably, and quietly, it's probably cheaper for them to just keep Kawhi and see what happens than try and blow it up and figure it out again because, egos and things like that, billionaires, and, oh, we're going to be better than the Lakers and we're going to be the new team. And they're getting a new stadium too. I think, Coach, you mentioned that as well.
Yeah, they got a new arena that's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, it would be so embarrassing for them to lose that. I think it's easier for them to hold a retain of Kawhi, who he is, and trot him out every now and again and say, "Look, we got Kawhi. We're look, hey, we're trying. We got one of the best players in the time. Here we go, here we go." Because at the end of the day, they still got to sell tickets, and you can't sell tickets to $1 million new place when you don't got no $1 million players. So I think that's probably quietly, I think that's the cheapest thing they're going to do is keep him and figure it out after those 3 years.
Okay. Finally, Derrick Rose retired this week. Man, when he was good, he was great. We always have the debate on the show and in the chats about the NBA Hall of Fame. And is it the NBA Hall of Fame or the NBA Hall of Very Good? Will, you got a ballot? Is Derrick Rose a Hall of Famer in your eyes?
Oh man, I love Derrick Rose, man, and same kind of the same way I loved Brandon Roy. I love both those guys immensely. Unfortunately, even with the MVP, I can't really put him in the Hall of Fame. I mean, he's the Hall of Fame, Hall of really good. I don't know if he's a Hall of Fame. He had some flashes, but it wasn't long enough for it to be in the Hall for me. But his legacy is solid though. I don't think he has to even worry about that. I mean, he's a Chicago legend. I think he's an NBA legend. People love him. He's a great person. He does a lot of charity and things like that. So, that's how you want to be known. You know what I'm saying? I'm cool with not making it to the Hall of Fame if people are saying I'm a great guy. He does good things. He helps with the community, things like that. And that's what you can hang your hat on. And then, he's a legend in the hood. That sometimes at the end of the day, that's better than being a big time legend. So, he'll always get his roses, man. Anytime you talk about Derrick Rose, there will never be a person who will say he was not a baller, and he will have that forever. So, salute to the young man for sure.
You are a historian, sir, and you've been a part of these debates about the Hall of Fame. What say you about Derrick Rose's Hall candidacy?
I agree with Will. I just don't think he was at that level long enough. I mean, from a talent perspective, no question. Because man, when he came into the league, I mean, he could do things nobody else could do. And torn ACL, torn Achilles, both of those, that'll do that to you. And after his Achilles, I mean, he was never really the same. He was still a good player, but he was never really the same. And kudos to him for a long career. But I don't think he's a Hall of Fame guy. He's he's one of those guys. What if he hadn't gotten hurt? That's what I.
All right. So fans, in segment 2, we're going to talk about the W. We've got the second round of the playoffs. We're in the heat of it. But more importantly, can they sustain these ratings now that Caitlin Clark's not here? We'll talk about it. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches Podcast. This is Dr. Keith Adams, president of the CKA Save Project, with a question for you. Are you passionate about supporting student athletes? If so, then become an official member of the CKA Save Project and make a difference today. With your membership, you'll be able to help us provide essential academic and athletic support to underserved communities nationwide. Join us in empowering student athletes to achieve their full potential, both on and off the field. Together, we can build a brighter future through education and sports. Visit ckasaveproject.org and choose your membership level now. $25 is a bronze level membership, $50 is a silver level membership, and $100 is a gold level membership. Be a part of the change. Become a member of the CKA Save Project today. Welcome back to the Odd Coaches Podcast in segment 2. Second round of the WNBA playoffs are here. The 4 best teams in the WNBA are playing in the playoffs. Let's do the playoff preview first, and then let's talk about if anybody's going to watch. New York Liberty, number 1 seed, taking on the Vegas Aces. 2-time defending champs. You got Asia Wilson, you got Breanna Stewart. It's a marquee matchup, and they guard each other. You can't get any better than that. It's a best-of-5 series. Robert, who do you got in this series?
Well, first of all, we have to make sure that for AWK we mention Kelsey Plum, because you can't talk about the Aces without talking about Kelsey Plum. If you're George, I mean, let's just make sure that we get that out of the way. Okay. Given how Vegas has played this year, I like New York. I just don't know. You've got Jonquel Jones and you've got Breanna Stewart, and Asia Wilson cannot guard both of them.
Correct.
So that's really the challenge, and I don't know if Vegas has anybody else who can get that taken care of.
Good call on that one. Will, who you got winning, sir?
Oh man, yeah, I'm an East Coast guy. I would love to say Liberty, but I think Asia Wilson is just playing for a different reason than a lot of other players. They're playing for the finals. She's playing for, legacy. Where she stands in the where she's in the Hall of Fame of all players. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Vegas, man. I think it's gonna be a tough game. I think it's gonna be 5 games, really, to be honest with you. I hope it is.
Yeah, Robert, you bring up a great point. Who's going to guard the second post? Because Breanna and Asia Wilson may cancel each other out, but having Jonquel Jones out there, I don't know on Vegas who's going to guard her. And she's going to be the key. And one of the things I've always said to my own players is she's a secondary player who's going to end up being a primary player, and you never want secondary to be primary, because that's when you mess up on the scouting report. All right. Minnesota Lynx is the 2nd seed. Connecticut Sun is the 3rd seed. Gentlemen, these were the 2 best defensive teams in the regular season, and now they're going head up. Connecticut won the first game. The Sun won the second game as well that they played, and Minnesota got the win at the end of the season. Connecticut looks to match up better against Minnesota based on the regular season. But, Will, what say you, Minnesota or Connecticut in the 5-game series?
Man, I'm going with Minnesota, man. They've been playing very well during the season. They're playing pretty well the last couple games at the end of the season. And I think they're just they're a little younger too. So, like you said, young legs run free, man. So, let it go, baby. So, I'm gonna think they're gonna get out there and win. And it's funny because one of their rookies, Alyssa Peely, hasn't really played. So are they holding off on her for something now? But they got some depth too. So, I think Minnesota's gonna get them out there.
All right, Robert, what say you, Minnesota or Connecticut?
Well, this looks like one of those series where, nobody's going to pay attention because the marquee matchup is the other semifinal. So there may be a little bit of additional incentive to the winner of this series. I think I like Connecticut. I hope this series goes 5. I think that the more exposure, the better it is for the league.
Yeah, and thank you for that segue. So we've got an issue with the WNBA. We've got the 4 best basketball teams to represent the WNBA playing. We also have lost the ratings juggernaut of Caitlin Clark, and it reminds me of when Hogan was transitioned out of being the WWF champion. I've been watching the McMahon documentary on Netflix, six episodes. I've known most of it, but Brett was a better wrestler, but he wasn't a better draw. And now we've got the WNBA touting attendance was up over 48%. They announced that the average fans per game was 9,800, a hefty increase from 6,600 last year. Over 2 million fans attended games, the most in 22 years. But now, your best of the best are there. Will we still have the ratings? Robert, what say you?
First of all, shout out to Bret the Hitman Hart. There you go. I love that. I mean, I think that it's pretty apparent that locally, I don't think the interest is going to change. I think that both series will draw sellout crowds. I think those 4 fan bases are going to care passionately about how their seasons wind up. I don't think that's going to change. From a national perspective, it's a little bit different because now at this time of year, you are in the middle of the college football season. You are in the week 4 or 5 of the NFL season, and Major League Baseball playoffs start this week. Today is the last day of the Major League. Sunday, they were taping, is the last day of the Major League Baseball season. So there's a lot of distractions, and I suspect that the WNBA is going to be a little bit harder to find on your cable, on your cable or your streaming networks. It's going to be a little bit harder to find them. So I think that with the teams locally, nothing's going to change. Nationally, it'll be interesting to see the difference in the ratings. I would expect they would go down. I don't know how much though.
And before I get to you, Will, I will say that the WNBA has done something smart with their playoff marketing. They're playing all of the playoff games in this series back to back. So Sunday night, Aces, Liberty, then the second game, Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever the night is. So they're playing them as a doubleheader. Will, what do you think in terms of the ratings? Because you can't get any better basketball than this. But will anybody watch? And Robert is right. A lot of distractions. And even I know Shohei Ohtani in the postseason is box office. So I'm watching him, George. I'm not watching the Dodgers. I'm watching one dude. Okay. And then I'm turning it off. What say you, sir?
It'll be an interesting postseason for the WNBA. I think they'll get a lot of metrics that'll say, okay, well, now that we got with Caitlin Clark, let's see what we can sustain or what things we need to change to capture all the audience that we can. I think one of the biggest thing is they can stay away from the weekends. If your playoffs are going to be in the fall, try and put them during the week, because I was watching games during the week when there was no football and nothing going on. So I'm like, I'm staying up watching Vegas games and all these games. So have them during the week. Trust me. I mean, people will watch. I mean, especially with all the fan betting and all things like that, they'll definitely watch on this. So, but they'll learn. They'll learn. I think this was a great trial season. This was a great trial season for the WNBA. They've never been popular before. It's like when you're the ugly girl and all of a sudden you're the hot chick. All of a sudden you're getting all this, attention. How do you handle that? How do you manage it? Same with like being an athlete. You're a bum in JV, and all of a sudden you're the stud, man. You're the guy. How do you manage that? The crowds are going to be more. The attention is going to be more. What's the difference that you're going to do the next year that's gonna improve things? And I think that part of that is learning is actually going against the NFL, going against college football, college going against MLB. And they may go through and say, hey, we didn't beat NFL, we didn't beat college, but hey, we can fight against the MLB, especially on the divisional postseason. We'll see. And that's business. That's business. And again, that goes back to the commissioner. And again, I think we talked about that a couple shows ago. Maybe she's not the commissioner that you need to grow the organization. So she need a more forward thinking kind of person. But yeah, it'll be interesting. And I think what will help. I think, like you guys said, I think they'll get smashed in the viewership. But I think what helps is it's accessible. You can actually go on your phone. If you could be sitting there, man, and just mess around like, hey, what's going on? Somebody may say, hey, Caitlin Clark, or not Caitlin Clark, but Angel Wilson does this crazy, or Stewie does some this, or in a sketch Stewie does something crazy. You're like, oh, let me go on my phone and, oh, okay, cool. So it's a lot easier and accessible. But I think the biggest thing they're going to get is they're going to get the metrics and set themselves up for success moving forward, knowing the giant that they have to go against next year.
And then this week's schedule, it goes Sunday, Tuesday, Friday. So those are the first three games. I'm not thinking we're going to get a sweep. So that's good stuff. So in segment, go ahead, Robert.
Friday, yeah, I think, Friday is actually not a bad day for them to take advantage. There's some college football, not a lot. There's no NFL. Tuesday, they should really be trying to take advantage of Tuesday and Wednesday. Really trying to take advantage of Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Because that Fox Friday game, which is why SmackDown is now on USA, been drawing better ratings than SmackDown, according to media reports. So college football is sneaking in on Friday nights, man. It's crazy. All right, in segment 3, we're going to take a deep dive in NIL. The UNLV former football quarterback caused a lot of chatter. NCAA president chimed in, so we're going to chime in on his chime in. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches Podcast. This is Dr. Keith Adams, president of the CKA Save Project and author of Finding the Balance, My Personal Journey to Academic and Athletic Success. This book is your key to unlocking the secrets of being a successful student athlete. Drawing from my 30-year career as a teacher and coach, this instructional guide offers a unique perspective on achieving success in both academics and athletics. With over 15 personal stories and insightful anecdotes, Finding the Balance is a must-read for student athletes, parents, coaches, teachers, and administrators. Visit www.ckasaveproject.org to get your copy and start finding the balance today. Welcome back to the Odd Coaches Podcast. In segment 3, we're going to talk about NIL, air quote, dysfunction. The president of the NCAA, Charlie Baker, lashed out at the evidence of dysfunction in today's NIL environment, according to him, while reiterating the desire to see Congress create national guidelines to shape the so-called name, image, and likeness endorsement deals that are reshaping college sports. We had national media people saying the players now have too much power, and Charlie Baker's social media posting came last week after wrapping up a week in which former UNLV quarterback Matthew Sluka made headlines by abruptly ending his season because his agent said he was not paid the $100,000 in an NIL deal that he was promised. Baker didn't mention that deal, but he said, and I quote, "We continue to see evidence of dysfunction in today's NIL environment, which includes examples of promises being made but not kept to student athletes." He did make a recommendation. He pointed out a template contract the NCAA provides the athletes that includes what he calls recommended fair terms, but the NCAA, who loses all of the time in court, does not have the authority to compel athletes to go by its standards. Robert, you are our administrator. This came across your desk, as I like to say. What are your thoughts on the NCAA president once again seeking congressional help to assist in NIL, which is a problem they created themselves?
Exactly. I mean, this is one of those how do you unintended consequences,
Let's go with it.
right? Because they, again, the NCAA had this issue and they just let it fester and never dealt with it. And now this is what you have. And, they are begging Congress for help. Congress can't do anything for political reasons that we're not going to discuss here because we're just not. Congress is not going to solve their problem. And now the NCAA is in a position where they really can't solve the problem either. So I don't know what happens. I don't know if schools start banding together in collectives of some kind to say, here are NIL regulations that we're all going to agree to. If nothing else, to our young fans out there, if you agree to something, get it in writing in a contract so that this doesn't happen to you. That's really the takeaway. The young man, I don't blame him for not playing if he thought he was going to get paid when he's not getting paid.
Will, you're a player. You've been in locker rooms, football and basketball. This situation came across your desk, and I know how some of your teammates feel about each other and the team and the sacrifice. But this dude got there like 3 weeks ago. So, what is your take on Charlie Baker as well as the situation before I try to calm myself and join in the conversation?
I think we don't give the kids enough, and I mean student athletes when I say kids, we don't give them enough credit. I think they know who's about it and who's not about it. And I think they know who's worth that they get and who's not worth they getting. I'm sure there's nobody in Texas who are like, oh, look at Arch Manning making all this money. Da, 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 da. They know he's real. They know he's real. There's nobody in Colorado saying, man, look at Shador driving around in a Rolls Royce, da, 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 because they know he's real. I don't think Sluka is real. And I think when he left, nobody cared and they still won. And I think we make a big deal about it because we look at like all these things are coming out. But I think quietly, I don't think it's going to, work on the long term. But quietly, the players know they know what's going on. It's like, look, you're balling, you're getting paid. I'm cool with that. If you're not balling, you can leave or figure it out for yourself. But we know, and once you tell me that, I know you're not really about it. You're not at the the weight room. I know you're not at the track working out with me. You hanging out with the chicks. I know you're not worried about me. I know you're not worried about the program. You're worried about getting paid. They can see that. And I think that comes back to having a strong organization, a strong team, a strong leader. That's what they're going to need right now. The teams that have good coaches that can manage that kind of financial disparities back and forth, they're going to have success. But unfortunately, we're going to get a bigger situation where it's like now we have an All-American or a Heisman kid who was promised $1.5 million and it wasn't given to him. And then he leaves and that changes everything. And so I think right now, it's kind of holding itself within, rubber band and string. But I think it's going to happen to a situation where this is going to be a big situation for like a big team, Texas, Michigan, Alabama, a team like that. And then they're going to be like, well, I don't know. So it's kind of sad that the NCAA is getting so many use cases. They're getting so much data. They're getting so many information that they can't make this policy happen. And then they look and they're like, let me go to the person who can't even make any decisions in the country, and let's have this person make a decision, has no information about, no year, they don't even care. So I think I don't really know what's going to happen. It's a mess right now, but I think right now, I think the coaches and the teams are kind of holding it together. And if players leave for off money, guys know, and they know it's like, hey, I know the guy's BS. He can ball. Don't get me wrong. Like, come on, man. Like, he's not my friend. It was raining. The guy drove off. He didn't want to give me a ride home to the dorms. Get out of here.
All right. So I'm glad I have Robert here because he was in the belly of the beast with me. I spent 20,000 hours studying Division I student athlete motivation in my book, Finding the Balance, and my own doctoral research that Robert actually helped me find the gap to even start all of this. And it still goes back to the why behind the what. And the CK Save Project craves its independence as being thought leaders. So let's break this down to its simplest form. A student athlete does not know contract law, and as a result, made a decision based on a verbal agreement, which is worth the paper it's written on. Wait, it's not written on paper. So then the student athlete took it upon himself to say, I'm going to withhold my services. That's basically what he did. And the team was like, we don't value you enough to even care. Somebody tried to pay them the money that they allegedly said owed, and they said, no, we're good. And then they go out on the field and perform better without said player than with said player. So now the player has no scholarship. The team's moving on and they'll probably lose next week. And the machine goes on and wait till basketball season when the kid from insert university in the exhibition game pops 40 and in the handshake line, yo, if you was in the portal, we'll come get you. Somebody's going to say that and he'll take it as gospel. And you're going to see this more and more when all you have to do is listen to the client, create a structured system, create some type of system where people have to sign in to represent, just like the NFL and any other. You got to take tests, you got to do whatever. Create an academic component where feel free to leave as long as you meet measurable progress, but nobody's doing any of that. So we're still going to have this mess. Robert, again, talk me off a ledge. Finish the segment, sir, because this irritates me because nothing ever comes back to academics, and we're students first.
No, it doesn't come back to academics, and I for the foreseeable future, I don't know as it will. I think one thing that may change the calculus a little bit going forward is that finally all of the people who have their COVID years are that this is probably the last year where we have any of these people with COVID years, so they should all be moving on. We know that the past couple of years, I mean, all sports, but I mean, football and basketball, there are way more players who enter the portal than actually find landing spots, which should tell you something. That should tell you something. If you're a young man and or a young lady and you go, I'm leaving, I'm getting in the portal, and you go in there and nobody picks you up, that should be a message to you that, hey, maybe I need to rethink my focus here. So I think that with the COVID years finally going away, we'll get a better and more accurate representation of how many kids are actually in the portal and how many actually wind up somewhere. And when I say somewhere, like you go from Division I to another Division I or Division I to Division II. I don't know if that tracks like guys who leave a D1 program and wind up at a JUCO somewhere in the middle of nowhere in West Texas, or if they wind up at some NAIA school somewhere. I don't know if that data tracks that, but should there be an academic component? Of course there should. I mean, what are we doing? We're talking about student athletes. Well, if we're going to talk about student athletes, let's talk about the student piece a little bit. But right now, that's not part of anybody's thought process, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, go ahead, Will.
And don't forget, Robert, let's not get a lot more Lamar Jackson situations where auntie or cousin or Uncle Jeff is the representation. You know what I'm saying? Like I can see that. I mean, you're getting recruited from a kid from these small towns, all of a sudden it's, well, so and so, he got a degree, so why don't you talk to him? So and so went to college. Hey, why don't you do deals with him? And that, there's going to be a lot of stuff like that. Players getting robbed, players getting taken bad contracts. I mean, we're not seeing the full iceberg. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg right now because everything is nice. But there's going to be a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on where guys get, hey, we're going to give you X amount of dollars and show up, and we're going to be here, and here's the money, and then they don't send the money, and then the team is, and then the family done. Well, we stopped working. We you told you gonna send us $300,000. What happened? It's like, oh, I'm not calling you no more. Don't call me now. Y'all gonna have to figure it out. There's a lot of ugliness that we're not hearing about yet. That's gonna start coming up. Yeah, like you said, I mean, and again, when are you the NBA? If you're an agent, you have to go to training and you have to understand the process of things like that. NCAA doesn't have that. So anybody who comes up and says, I'm representation, it's like, well, have you read our policies? Have you read?
We have to pass the NCE to teach. We have to pass.
Yeah. Do you even know what NIL
you got to
stands
pass
for?
the test to be a barber. I mean, so
Yeah.
again, all we're asking for is just, what do we say in education, Robert? Just some guardrails, just some structures, just something to say, come on into the club. And that's why we have exceptions to the rules, not rules for the exceptions. But with that, thank you, gentlemen, for your time with that. And on behalf of our Cavalcade of Stars, I'm Dr. Keith Adams, saying thank you for listening and or watching the iCoaches podcast. And we'll see you on the sidelines. Till next time, take care.
The iCoaches podcast is sponsored by the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project is an industry leader in providing student-athlete academic and athletic support. From assessing student-athletes' academic and athletic skills, to measuring and monitoring student-athlete academic progress, to improving student-athlete time management and organizational skills, the CKA Save Project provides wraparound services for student-athletes from middle school through college. For more information, visit us on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org or schedule a free consultation with Dr. Keith Adams by emailing cka@ckasaveproject.org. We hope you enjoyed today's show. The iCoaches podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday through Friday on most weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the iCoaches podcast on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow the iCoaches podcast on Twitter and Instagram at oddcoaches. Follow Dr. Adams on Twitter and Instagram at CKA Save Project. In addition, follow Coach Mike Francis on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Franchise, spelled Coach FRANCHIZE. For more information about the CKA Save Project, please visit them on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org. See you next time on the iCoaches podcast.